Welcome back to the next part of Burnout and Chinese Medicine, the series. This has turned out to be a series. If you haven't seen the first videos, you need to go back and watch those. If you are a business person, there's a specific video about burnout and business. So I'm not going to go through the whole intro in this one. You'll need to go back and watch the others to get that intro. So we're just going through some of the reasons why people could be experiencing burnout, particularly remembering that we defined it by the WHO definition as being an occupational phenomenon, not something else. So you need to go back and watch that video if you haven't already. And how does Chinese medicine see this idea of burnout, right? So we talked about lack of purpose, lack of joy, and lack of energy as three things relating to like the wood element, the fire element with the lack of joy and pleasure, and the lack of energy could be a water element thing. It could be an earth element thing. So spleen qi deficiency or kidney yang deficiency, or just general yang or general qi deficiency kind of patterns could be there. So what else can happen, right? Why can we experience burnout? This could be if you're running your own business. This could be if you are employed in a job. Sometimes the job stays the same, but you've changed. And you might not have recognized that you've changed. Now, how would this play out? Maybe something has happened and your values have changed. Now, we recently went through a big period of change in the world, right? The COVID-19 stuff was huge. And making this video 2024, like we're still talking about it now. It's 4 years gone, right? It's completely changed the way we think about the world. People are worried about stuff they never were worried about before. People do business in different ways, and there's good things and bad things and all kinds of things that have happened. But we can certainly say that things have changed, and your perspective on the world might have changed. Your values might have been challenged or changed, not just from the COVID stuff, but this can happen, right? You're trotting along, everything's singing a song, everything's good, and then suddenly you're like, hang on a minute, I don't enjoy this anymore. That's what burnout is essentially about. You don't feel the drive, you don't feel the passion, and then one day you feel exhausted and you don't want to do it anymore. Maybe your ethical values have actually changed, or you've realized something about the company that you work for and you just don't feel that aligns. And that can affect our sense of purpose, right? So if you're feeling like this is the right thing for me to be doing and I'm doing the right thing for me doing, I'm doing the right thing, everything's happy. But if you're suddenly challenged in that way, it might be quite confronting for you the first time. But if you've let those values slip, you've let them slip, you might not have even realized how much you've departed from something that was important to you, and that can eat away at the core of you. Where does that affect us in Chinese medicine? Morals kind of really affect our metal element. So particularly if you're a metal type of person, those people usually are very moral types. And if they're confronted with that ethical dilemma, they usually won't give in to it and do something that they feel is unethical. But all of us have that inside us. All of us have that moral compass. We all have a sense of right and wrong for yourself, and that's why it's a sense. And you know when you know. So I'm not going to say too much more about that, but if that could be part of it, that could be one of the reasons. This whole section is called the jobs stayed the same, but you've changed, right? You've changed because maybe you've got a family now, and what's important to you is different when you didn't have a family. If you have kids, things are going to be different. You might not think that they are, but they will be different. The amount of time you're willing to give to the job before that versus now, that kind of thing might have changed. As we get older, maybe we're less willing to put up with BS from people, other workers. Just things that would annoy you maybe a little bit before are like, no, I'm not even going to be putting up with that now. I just can't be bothered with that. So there might be some recognition of that stuff to be had in this scenario. It's a good idea if you're thinking about exiting that area to think about an entry plan for somewhere else, not necessarily another job, like as in, if I leave this company, I have to go to that company. It's as you think, if you're thinking that this isn't right for me anymore, what you want to focus on is, well, what would be right for me? And as you do that, if there are openings within the company you work for, or any reason for you to stay in your job, that would then become apparent. If, let's say, it's the moral thing, right? Where you're like, I just don't feel that I'm doing the right thing, or this, maybe the company's changed even, and they're doing things differently to what you thought they would be doing, or what you signed on for at the beginning, and you've been there for 10 years or something like that. As you create that entry plan, like you start to think about what's in the future. Now, if you're finding that hard, we have to go back to the things I talked about the first video, which is like the wood element, to generate wood, because that allows us to think about, well, what would I want instead of this? Like, not just like, I don't want this, but what would I want instead of this? And as you start to do that, especially if you do it in a meditative way, you're using water to kind of generate wood, you'll start to come to you'll start to get the motivation to actually go for something else rather than just quitting the thing you're doing, really. Think about, if the job was a means to an end, have you got a time frame around that? Because that can lead to burnout. Like I said before, you were planning to do this for a few months while you got your degree, but then you never got the degree and you never did the career you really wanted to do, or something like that. Or maybe you really want to have a family and you just want to be able to not work now and be with your family. That's okay. So putting that time frame around what you're doing to be able to endure that thing for that time, but then there's a limitation on that. And keeping a close tab and monitoring that progress is important. Otherwise, you'll get sort of stuck in that mode again. Another year will go past and you'll think, oh, I was supposed to leave this thing then, and but this has had now, excuses or reasonings come to you, that kind of thing. All right, the next thing I want to talk about is mental taxation and burnout. So mental taxation is a thing that we see more and more in our society, I think, than we have ever before. In the Han Dynasty, they talk about taxation. They talk about people living a more frivolous life. And that passage I read from the Ling Shu at the very start of this series, talking about people needing to take control of their emotions. And, is it due to the heavens that it says in that video? Like, is it just due to the whims? Or is it something that people have control over? Those things were mostly in relation to physical taxation, like people having too much sexual intercourse, people having, excessive food and not having enough sleep and things like that, or taxing their body very physically. Like manual labour was a big thing then, because we didn't have as much automation and as much sitting down kind of jobs as we do now. Right? You weren't sitting down at a rice field being a gardener. You had to physically tax your body. So people had to, for buildings and things like that, they had to physically tax themselves a lot more than we do on the whole, right? I still see patients that work in physical jobs and they're real taxed from doing those physical labour, manual labour jobs. But we have a lot of mental taxation. What's mental taxation? It's your mind never resting. Your mind's always on, never shuts down. What causes that? Well, phones, devices, like iPads and tablets and whatever, having a lot of stuff going on at once, like you're listening to the radio, you've also got the TV on at the same time, you've got visual stimulation and auditory stimulation happening all the time. Different forms of noise pollution can be included in this as well. So if you live in a busy area where there's a lot of noise going on, right, there might be a lot of trucks beeping and cars making sounds and, this kind of stuff all the time. That can be that's going to mentally tax you. It's mentally disturbing. So there's a few things that I'm going to talk about as ideas, but essentially you have to find a way to turn that whole thing down or off, as in you have to have some rest time. Talk to myself as well here. Like, everyone is guilty of this, or it's a problem for everyone. I don't see any people that it isn't a massive, like it's rare for me to find a person that this isn't some kind of a problem for. Like, these things are addictive. Like, phones are addictive. People carry them everywhere with them. They know, your they're sort of ding, ding, ding. Things are happening all the time. So let's talk about some ways that we can reduce that mental taxation. And I'm going to keep this particularly to burnout, occupational burnout, as in on your job, but just to reduce mental taxation in your life. So I want to preface this by saying I don't have all the answers, but I'll do my best to give you some ideas. And I'm sure that you'll come up with some things you can do on your own. And if you do have some good ways to reduce device usage, mental taxation in this way, then please pop those in the comments. That's a great thing to do to help other people in our community. So firstly, because we're talking about work and device use, I would advise you to avoid, if you can, having too much work stuff or any work stuff on your phone that you take around everywhere. So part of this taxation is that people never switch off from things that can be quite stressful for them. It could be stressful directly. So let's say you open your email. It could be a source of joy. It could be surprise. And this is where the wheel of dopamine comes into it. Like it's like spinning that chocolate wheel. Oh, it's going to be a good opportunity that I get. And especially if you're a business person, this is what happens, right? It's like I have had this scenario myself. Okay, I'm busy. If I don't check my emails now, I'll only end up checking them in the morning. I'll save myself that time in the morning. I'll check them now. Inevitably, you're still going to check them in the morning as well. So you're spinning that wheel of, is there something good there? Is there a lovely email? Is it an angry customer? Is it something I have to deal with it? Is it a stressful thing? Is it something that's going to potentially keep me worried and up all night thinking about that? It almost could be any of those things. So having some way of distancing yourself from those things at some times. Now, it might not be possible all the time. So I'm not saying don't have it, but on this phone, I don't have emails from work. I just don't have the emails on there. I just have one email that I use for, only personal things. I like the computer because I'm a Gen Xer. I remember when there wasn't any internet, I prefer to go to the computer, log on, and there's my emails, and then I'll use them. I put all my emails on my iPad, and I use my iPad like a laptop. That works for me in one way. The other thing that continuously makes us alert is social media. So that from time to time, one of the things I'll do is move my Facebook or Instagram or whatever icons that you use, I move them to 2 or 3 pages back, or you move them around so that you are not in that habit of like directly just pressing that for no reason. Like literally you're not thinking, oh, I need to go to Instagram to post my thing for my business. Because I get that you're trying to do this stuff often for a business or for a reason. You need to do that. If it's your business, you have to do that. You can't just like not post it. Otherwise, you'd never be seeing this video, right? From me, if I was monk-like, I wouldn't be making YouTube videos. I would just be meditating in my cave, and you'd never get the benefit of this. So you have to establish some kind of boundaries for yourself. What is going to work for you? Maybe you start with one thing, and then you think, oh, that's working good. Okay, I'm gonna add something else. I'm gonna add something else. Another option is you get a separate phone for work and you don't have any work stuff on your personal phone. So the only things that could disturb you on that phone would be real true emergencies from people you really truly care about, like your parents, your grandparents, your kids, your brothers or sisters or whatever it is, like those circle of trust, those certain people that you care about. Like I want to know if something happened. So there's been times where my brother's called me and he's been like, oh, we need to go to the hospital in the middle of the night. Could you look after the kids or something? Like, I don't want to be absent from getting those calls, right? I obviously don't want those calls every minute of the day, and that doesn't happen. If something happened to my parents, I would want to know, like, what's happened to them and if I can be able to help. But I also, I've gone through this process before where I've had, you've had work calls divert to your phone, right, in the past. And, sometimes a patient had called at 3 o'clock in the morning and they'd expected to get an answering machine and I didn't expect it was a patient. And, the phone has woken you up because it was diverting to my mobile and you've answered it. And then you're like, and they were like, oh, it's an emergency, something has happened. Now, if you're a doctor on call and you are supposed to be on call for that night, that's different. I'm talking about outside of your work hours. Work out something that is going to work for you is what I'm getting at. So just remember, there was a time when we didn't have mobile phones, and you might feel an unnecessary expectation to be on these things all the time. And then you have to ask yourself, is that productive for me? How is that productive for me? Think about that wheel of chance, because that's exactly what happens. Like, I get excited when I open my emails for one of my businesses, because there's very rarely anything bad, and it's always usually good stuff, right? But there's always the chance that there could be something there, right? Like with my music business, like there's always, if I get emails there, it's usually like good opportunities, people saying nice things about my music, nice comments on, social media or something like that. It's very rarely, oh no, that's so distressing, what am I going to do about that? But that also hypes you up late at night. Good opportunities can just as easily hype you up. Now, they don't make you angry or upset, but I probably don't need to be thinking about, oh, this next career opportunity is happening, at 11 p.m. when I'm trying to rest my head on the pillow and fall asleep. So I'm saying this because I can speak from, experience, being a person who's run their business and is still running several businesses, that it's necessary, but also is it really necessary? You have to ask yourself that, to be doing that all the time. For some people, they can't help but the phone is like attached to them, almost like they can't even have a conversation with people at a dinner table without opening the phone. And I've been guilty of that too, where you just think, you're chatting with someone and your phone's there, so you pick it up and you think, oh, I'll just quickly do this, I'll quickly do that. Or texts are coming into you or things like that. So this whole thing of being on, and it's almost like, think about your own brain as like this notification sensor, ding, 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 and all these things are happening. That's not a peaceful environment. Some people can be calm in that chaos and they can kind of deal with that, but we need to exit from that every so often, on the regular, once a day, sometime. Go for a walk and take your old-fashioned iPod with you, right? I've still got my old iPod that's just a little, a little square, and you load things on the computer and you just press play and you listen to it with your headphones, and there's no digital on it at all. It's just MP3, right? Something like that. Like, sometimes these things are necessary. Get your old Walkman with your cassette tape or something like that, and just go for a walk, or listen to nothing. Just have no song. That's what my nephew would say when we're driving the car. I said, what song do you want? He went, no song. Like, what song would you like to listen to? No song. I was like, do you want to drive in silence? It's okay to have silence. It's okay to just have a break from the noise, okay? That's important, right? So it might be worth the investment of a second phone, or you delete your social media off your phone, or you put it on the next page. I've often done that. I don't have notifications turned on for everything. My Facebook Messenger, I don't have notifications turned on for that. So the people that matter most to me, they know if they need me, you call me. Like, call my number, ring me, ring, and I'll answer. So if you send me a message on Facebook or Instagram or something, I'm not going to be checking that stuff. I don't have those. I'm not going to be having my phone ding dong all day long. It's not going to happen. So it also makes you more productive in those ways, because then you can turn your device on or your computer on. You can open that thing purposefully and say, I'm going to do this now. I remember Joe Rogan saying something like, I like to post and ghost, which is like, he posts something and then goes, like, doesn't stay around for the comments. And that is part, like, if you've got Instagram and you're like, you post something, 10 people liked it, 20, 30 people liked it, look, all these comments are there. You don't have the luxury of that with some businesses. I fully understand that. But that can be very taxing depending on what kind of industry you're in. Maybe you do get a lot of negative comments and you have to kind of deal with them. But having set times for doing things and not allowing your mind to be on all the time. Having times of silence, spaces of silence, that can help as well. Right, we're getting through this pretty easily. Because I'm passionate about this topic. So I'm going to talk about in this next little part about like physical symptoms that can sometimes happen with burnout, and then also what we can do in terms of acupressure and other things we can do. So physical symptoms that can happen from it with burnout, aside from that, just that lack of energy to do the thing, might be more related to another thing going on if we were to technically say that from Western medicine. So if we follow the WHO definition, it's only related to our workplace lack of motivation, our workplace lack of enjoyment, and feeling, taxed and sort of, I guess, spent, or had enough of exhaustion in that area. However, I know lots of people come to this video because they're not just thinking about occupational burnout, but burnout in the sense of I don't feel engaged in life, maybe don't feel enthusiastic for life. So what physical symptoms can happen, right? When you've got a lack of motivation that affecting that wood element, when you have problems with wood not generating fire, you could have symptoms physically with lack of desire in the bedroom. If you're a man, lack of being able to get an erection or sustain an erection, so erectile dysfunction kind of problems. So that could be like a lack of interest in sex and desire for sex, but it could also be a physical inability to get and sustain an erection if you're a man. Other physical symptoms can be digestive. So this is where when the earth element isn't functioning well, this is your spleen and stomach, you'll get a thing in TCM called spleen chi deficiency, which is where your spleen energy has less fire or less function, less chi, to give to that whole process of separating pure and impure foods, what we call the arisal of the clear. You might get dampness. So you're going to have things like bloated, heaviness in your body, looser stools. Before it gets loose and diarrhea, it's probably just going to be like going frequently, or sticky stools. So maybe going a few times a day, or a little bit of wiping, that kind of thing, like more wiping than would be normal. So gassy or bloated, and lower appetite or changes in your appetite. So bloating, gassy, could be pain. Like in Chinese medicine, they often say abdominal distension. So it sort of means like, feeling heavy, and it's part of that is that pain of bloating. So this can also lead to problems with eating. Like sometimes people tend to reach out for foods that they shouldn't really be eating that much of. Sugary foods, sweet foods, carbs, craving foods, eating too much of something as a way to compensate for the depression that they feel, or the sadness, the despondency that they feel, maybe. And that could then lead to other problems, like where you're putting on weight, or you're, got other digestive problems because of the food that you're eating. But it more commonly can lead to people having like a lack of appetite. Like that lack of desire is also like, oh, I just don't really feel like eating much food. I just don't really feel that hungry, that kind of thing. All right, so physical symptoms could be those kinds of things as seen in the TCM pattern of spleen chi deficiency, kidney yang deficiency, this kind of thing, right? In Chinese medicine, it's always important to remember that thing about if the physical's not in balance, the emotions won't be, and the emotions out of balance is going to affect the physical. So for some people, even though technically this burnout issue is not an emotional one, if your physical body is out of balance to lead you to have a lack of purpose and a lack of desire, or the circumstances of the work has caused you to feel that, then it's going to make sense that your emotions would be out of balance, or harder to control, less easy for you to control it. So that might mean where people feel like something sad happens, but then you cry so easily, or feel like it's hard to stop crying, feel uncontrollably angry. Like that can happen when the wood element gets out of balance. As I said at the start of this video, sometimes these things that have happened in life in the past, not maybe directly right before this burnout has happened, but you lost someone, and there's a grief there, and there's a sadness there, you've lost something. Part of this process could be causing these emotions to happen. Like if you're feeling like a lack of joy out of your job, and you're feeling like this might be coming to an end, there might be parts of it that you don't want to end, but there's parts where you don't feel like it can continue on. And so there could be some grief or sadness happening, as well as because of the thing that's happening, right? Because of the job that's ending or the career that's ending, or that you feel is ending. Could be some grief and sadness kind of coming along with that. And you think, I wish I just did feel like I used to feel in my job about it. So what can we do about this? I've already offered you plenty of things you can do in terms of trying to restore that wood, restore that fire. Treating your diet would be the way that you would help your spleen or your earth element, and your particularly if you had spleen qi deficiency, you kind of need to follow that diet approach there. So I'll leave that to you to go and find those other videos that are on my channel about that stuff. So what could we do to kind of generate some of this, a better passion for life, and perhaps generate some of the desire? So we can try to nourish water. Now, even if you don't need your water nourished, everyone does. So these are things like, one is downtime, allowing yourself to have some of that stuff, some of that mental taxation that we talked about out. So reducing your screen time, reducing your device touching, and getting on social media and things like that will help. We can also think about acupressure for the water element in terms of the kidney channel. So on the ankles, you could probably do something like this. I'm going to show you on my own foot. Okay. So I'm just going to put one of my feet up here. I'm just going to show you where your kidney channel is. So on the very base of your foot, you can press this point here. Now, this is something you can just do when you're sitting and watching TV. You can just kind of press and massage in there. You can also use like the back of a pen and sort of use that to kind of press it in there. And then below your ankle bone, here's my ankle bone here. You can go and kind of encircle this area and rub in here. So you can kind of rub. Now, this is your spleen channel here, but we can sort of rub all around here and all around the base of your ankle. So you can press it, you can rub it, you can use your hand like this and rub. You can get into this point between your ankle bone and your calcaneal tendon. Halfway between, there's a big point there, and then just right up against the tendon, there's another point in there. So what would be a very lovely thing would be to give yourself a little bit of a foot soak. You could use magnesium, literally soaking your feet in water, and then just giving them a bit of a rub. If you've got some sort of like acupressure device, you can use that, or you can just rub with your feet. Your partner could give you a foot rub. That would be nice. Or you give yourself one. If that's all you've got, okay? Or you give your partner a foot rub. And hopefully they'll give you one back. So we can do that. We can also massage our gallbladder channels. For the wood element directly, we can use the gallbladder channel, right? So I would use gallbladder 1 first because it's easy to do, because it's right on your face here. So just on the outside of your eye, there's a bone here, and it's right on the bone. And you don't actually need to do this very hard, and you can actually just very gently tap this. So you're tapping on the bone. I would suggest you do it like this. A little bit of a sound there, and that's all you kind of need to do. So you're just kind of doing that. Right, that's gallbladder 1. Another point you could do would be gallbladder 34 on your leg, and on your hips, gallbladder 29. So I'm going to insert a little bit of the video from my course here to show you how to find those 2 points. So the first one is gallbladder 20. Now, lots of these points are on the gallbladder channel here. Between the between the trapezius muscle and the sternocleidomastoid muscle, there's a hollow space there. And what you want to do is put your thumb underneath the bone into that space. So I'm going to show you how to do that now. And then what you can do is you can kind of lean back into it. So like this, so you can lean into your thumb. Now, if I'm doing this just to be a bit incognito, let's say you're trying to press this, you've got a headache, or you are stressed at a meeting or something like that, you don't have to lift all your hair up. You can just palpate underneath there, press underneath in that area. Now, there are a few acupressure points in that area, but the gallbladder 20 is the biggest point. And a little trick you can use is to push with your finger, or just to place your finger in that spot, and then to tilt your head towards your finger or your thumb. And that's going to push your head into the point rather than you needing to put pressure with your thumb or whatever you're doing there. Okay, so that's the first one. The next one is I'm going to call this the I'm a little teapot point. So I'm going to stand up and show you on my waist. Okay, so you've got ribs here at the side, and this is the end of the floating rib. So if you put your hands on your hips like you do this, I'm a little teapot, short and stout. I don't know if you had that when you were a kid, but your thumb will basically be lying against the rib of that, where that point is. So you want the end of that rib, and it's right on the midline of your body. And these are pretty sensitive points. Now, what you can do is you can just press in there with your thumb. And this can be used for a few different things, like to release stagnation when it's building up around your diaphragm kind of area. It's going to take that out so you can kind of see me in total. One thing I actually use this point for is when I'm singing in the studio, I'll naturally usually put my hands on my hips, like if I'm going to do a vocal take or something. And I found that when I press this point, it kind of just releases tightness and helps that chi to flow smoothly through your chest. And that, like, because it's on your gallbladder channel, it's covering all the side of your body. It interacts with your diaphragm. And when we're talking about the wood element, the chi of the wood is the gallbladder, and the blood of the wood is the liver. So these are all these acupressure points for wood, particularly wood psychological things, are going to be gallbladder points, because they act on motivation, they act on movement. So gallbladder 25. Now, how do you do this? You can just press on it. It's a pretty sensitive area. You don't have to push too hard. You could do tapping here, so sort of tapping with your hand. You can do the rubbing, the side rubbing. So that way we're getting the whole area, and all this area is gallbladder channel down the side here, so we can kind of just rub that side bit. Okay, the next one I want to show you is gallbladder 21, and this is what I would use the bird pecking method to do. So this point is midway between the exact middle of your body. How we measure it in acupuncture is where your C7 vertebra is, and then this tip that pops out of your shoulder, the acromion process, so midway between there. For people that have chi stagnation, this area might be very tight for you already. It might be like almost excruciatingly kind of tight. I'm going to show you a couple little tricks you can do with this point. So this is a wooden coat hanger. And what's good about this is it's got the wooden part here as well. It's got a bit of bounce on it because it's wooden. So you can use this to actually press the point of gallbladder 25 and just massage up and down that channel. If you have a massage gun, great, use that. Get it in there and press into the point. Obviously, any of these points you could use the massage gun. I wouldn't use the massage gun on your side of your body, but this kind of thing, right? So when I do this, I might even go down, which is not your gallbladder channel, but it's still nice to do, the back of your shoulders area, but just right on here. Now, the other way you can use this point is with the bird pecking method. So what we do with this is it has to have this tapping sound. I'm going to do it into the microphone. That hitting kind of clicking, almost clicking sound. And you want your wrist to sort of bob up and down a little bit. So I'm going to press on that. Now, you wouldn't use this point if you're pregnant. This is contraindicated in pregnancy, unless it's like the last couple of weeks of pregnancy. Okay, so we want to do that. Do it on the other side. Now, if you can't find the exact point, just be in that general area, okay? So just kind of in there, and you can use the bird pecking method. This is a lovely point where that someone else can press on you, but it's harder to press it yourself with that, like someone else can lean into the point. Just press, and we can tap on there. You can just kind of do that a little bit. It's harder to press this point on yourself. You can press it, but you kind of just sort of, it's harder to get the leverage to really get in there. Okay. So that's gallbladder 20, gallbladder 25, gallbladder 21. The next two are on the legs. All right, hope you enjoyed that. And if you are interested in learning more acupressure for the 5 elements for different things, then you can go and enroll in that course. And that's the sponsor of this video. So we're self-sponsoring this video. Another point we could try to use for the emotional side of things is the pericardium channel. So right in the middle of your hand, particularly if you're feeling brokenhearted, you're feeling a bit of despair, you're feeling like there's a bit of a loss there, then pericardium 7 you could kind of use here, right in the middle. So right in the middle of your wrist crease here. And how would we press that? We just could kind of, I'd hold my hand like this and use my thumb in the back to sort of press and massage it there. So you could just, I could be sitting here doing the video and you wouldn't even know that I'm pressing the point. I'm just kind of holding my hand. I'm using this part of my hand to make sure my wrist doesn't sort of flop around everywhere. And you could just kind of do it like this. So I'm again using my thumb on this side, just holding my hand like that, and I could just be sitting on the desk. And I'm doing it now and you wouldn't even know. So what should you feel when you do acupressure? Some kind of heavy, achy, tingly. When I'm pressing that point there, I'm actually going to feel it to my middle finger, which is the pericardium channel. So you should feel it all the way up there. Another point we could try for the lungs, metal, is this one here for grief, lung 9. So we're going to just go right at the crease of the wrist. And all these points across the crease can be kind of used for this sort of stuff. So there's tons of acupressure points that could be used. These are just a few of them. And really what's going to be right for you is going to be dependent on your Chinese medicine diagnosis. So if I had a patient that came to me and said, I feel burned out from my job, I want help with acupuncture or herbs, it's going to be an individualized approach, right? All these things I've said might not apply to every person. So I would be looking as a practitioner for, like, is this person not generating wood from some reason through that 5-element cycle, and how can I then help them to do that, and what points would be necessary for them? So what I've done in this video, it's become a series because so many videos have been made from the one video. Because it's taken so long, I'll break it up into parts. So what I've essentially done is shown you how I would approach a patient if they came to me and said I had burnout. This is the kind of things we would be thinking about. So there's going to be some kind of lack of wood there, probably. It might not be the thing that directly manifests there, but because there's a lack of motivation to do the job, that's kind of core. That's core to the whole scenario part of it. So if a person is so depleted where they don't have any energy to go to the job anymore, they have to lie down a lot, they're very, very sleepy. In Chinese medicine, we use this word somnolence, like they just are really almost shut down. That could be depression as well, like they could have depression. And in Chinese medicine, we kind of would want to use herbal medicine in that case to really boost that yang. Like that would be kind of really needed. Acupuncture can help as well, but it's not as effective as the herbs when someone's so depleted they need that nourishment coming in there. A high protein diet or meat-based diet would also help to boost that yang, because meat has more yang in it than any other foods, particularly red meat, chicken stock, bone broths. These kinds of things would be really useful. I'm not saying they're going to stop the burnout, like that's not going to treat it by itself, but they're going to help to give the body substance to kind of work with. That's how we would think about it. Another type of food, or food group in Chinese medicine, if you like, a flavor of food that helps to move the wood element, is actually pungent and aromatic foods. I've talked about this a lot on the channel in different other videos. I've got actually a video that I made recently on creativity, like how to boost your creativity. And you could actually do almost all the things from that video for this stuff, because it's the same concept of moving chi. You want chi to be moving. So pungent foods and aromatic foods. So if you're at this point, you've watched all the way till here, go and find that video on creativity. It's called How to Boost Your Creativity, something like that. It's a very recent video that I did, and it's kind of talking about that. It's the same idea of like you need that wood moving, and that's kind of what we're trying to do with burnout as well, as it's a similar kind of idea. The same foods will do that, because creativity is also the same thing. That creativity comes from that wood element as well. All right, so this has been a lot, I know, and I hope I've answered everyone's questions that has asked them. Thank you very much for people who have asked a question about this topic. I am super passionate about this because I really believe if you are passionate, you won't burn out. Like, that's what I believe. I believe if you stick to your passion and you are able to steer yourself when you feel that you are burning out, or you feel like, I don't even use that term in my life. I never use that term, and I will never use that term. Like, I personally have a conviction that I'll never burn out. You can get tired doing something, and you can, be unsatisfied doing something. But I do subscribe to that idea of the candle situation with that. Grant Cardone says, if you've followed this whole series along, you can check out that. I think will be in the second video talking about that. So, if you are connected to your purpose, you cannot burn out. Now, you can get tired, or you can get, sidetracked, and you might need to reconnect with that purpose. But then that in itself fuels you. It does fuel you. And this is why some people can do things for extended periods of time, even enduring some kinds of really levels of hardship, but they seem to be able to keep going because of it's connected to their purpose, and that in itself is fueling you. So I hope that you get something like that out of this video. I hope you feel refueled. I hope you are able to connect with what's important to you. And if you're not sure about these things, or you're a young person and you don't know who you are, that's okay. Go and do this course that I've set up about the 5 elements. That's a great way to start. You can do personality tests. You can kind of do journaling. You can just explore different activities to find out what you enjoy, because you have to try a lot of stuff to find out whether you like it or not, because you won't know until you do it. You can't know if you're going to enjoy doing something by just reading about doing it or thinking about doing it. You have to actually get in there and do it. So by exploring different jobs, exploring different hobbies, that kind of thing is a good idea to connect with what's going to be the longevity thing for you, the thing that you're going to want to do forever, or you're going to want to do it for a long enough time that you're able to make a difference in the world doing it. So hope that you have enjoyed this video. I've enjoyed making it, and stay well, be amazing, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you. All right, this is the last bit of the video. It's the never-ending fucking video.